political earthquake overnight with word that the Department of Justice is investigating, has launched a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. They say it's over potential testimony he gave over renovations to the Federal Reserve building. But Powell, in this extraordinary video statement, says it's something about completely different. He says this is about the Fed's independence and the Federal Reserve's ability to raise and lower interest rates independently from political winds. Here with us now is CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. So Fed Chair Jerome Powell talks about Fed independence, right? How important do the American people think that is?
Very. And I'll just say, to quote the movie Tootsie, this is one nutty hospital, this back and forth. My goodness gracious. They think it's incredibly important that the Fed acts independently of Donald Trump, and they think it's best for the economy. We're talking about more than 2/3 of adults, 68%, 91% of Democrats, 75% of independents, and even 41%, 2/5 of Trump's base thinks it's important that the Fed acts independently of Trump for the best of the economy. So when you get 41% of Republicans and 91% of Democrats agreeing on something with 75% of independents, you know it is a popular position. The bottom line is the American people vigorously disagree with the President of the United States on this. They want a Fed that acts independently of him because they think it's best for the economy.
So the Trump administration very clearly, to an extent, picking a fight with Jerome Powell, a clear political fight, which has been at play for months, and now perhaps a legal fight as well. Who do the American people sort of pick in that fight?
Donald Trump is losing the political fight to Jerome Powell. I mean, you could just see it right here. Net approval rating per Gallup in December. Trump comes in at negative 23 points on the net approval rating, way underwater Jerome in the world. But at minus 3 points, he's actually the most popular guy that Gallup polled of any of the politicians, any of the folks in government. He is far more popular than Donald Trump.
When it comes about the economy in general, how's the president doing now?
Yeah, I think this is, of course, a big portion of it, right? It's not just about the cuts. It's also about the economy. And you look at Donald Trump's net approval rating on the economy. He started off at plus 6 points. You go back a year ago, that was the reason why he won a second term in the White House. Look at this now. He is now 19 points underwater, swimming in the deep.
Todas as medidas que tomou no último ano, e foram medidas, a maioria polêmicas e contrárias à visão política e econômica de qualquer país.
That is a drop, John, of what, 25 points in just a year's time.
President Trump has made crystal clear that he wants.
Uma aprovação de 24%. Por tudo que fizeste, pelo que o homem fez durante um ano. Eu nunca vi um presidente do primeiro mundo a tomar medidas tão polêmicas, tão, muitas vezes, que eu acho, né, da minha visão, péssimas para o país que é os Estados Unidos. Mas ele tomou essas decisões e agora, pronto, o problema é agora com o tesouro, né? Vamos lá ver como é que vai ser o homem máximo que cuida do dinheiro, do dólar, o dinheiro mundial.
Wants lower interest rates. You know, the Fed Chair Jerome Powell is suggesting this entire criminal investigation is over the president's desire to get lower interest rates. What do the prediction markets think about whether they will get lower interest rates?
No, it's not going to work for Donald Trump. Take a look here. The chance that the Fed Reserve maintains interest rates in January, 94%, despite the threats from Donald Trump. It seems that Jerome Powell, the prediction markets think, will hold his ground along with the rest of the Fed.
The president is really open about his disdain for Powell, who, by the way, President Trump appointed in his first term. The president is consistently pressuring him to cut interest rates. He said this about the investigation last night to NBC News, quote, "I don't know anything about it, but he's certainly not very good at the Fed, and he's not very good at building buildings." I'm joined by
O Trump também. Fala mal. Parece, eu entendo a visão política do Trump. O Trump agora quer baixar os juros, quer para a economia voltar a ferver, as pessoas deixarem de terem medo e começarem a investir, a criar negócios, fazer as coisas. Mas por isso é preciso com que o Fed, a reserva, lá o dono, o homem que está lá máximo, deixa que isso aconteça. que imprimam dinheiro à vontade, porque as pessoas vão buscar o dinheiro porque os juros estão baixos.
A terrific group of reporters. I mean, I don't know. I don't think his job is to build buildings, so maybe that's
Right.
that's a fair criticism.
Every contractor would be indicted if that was the response, right?
That's true. But you know, I sort of joked about using the word unprecedented so many times. But Frank, this is one of those moments we have to take a step back and remind people this is not normal. This is not run-of-the-mill Washington stuff.
It's not normal.
Não,
and
mas
part of the reason
isso até que faz parte da política. Os países grandes, principalmente os Estados Unidos, que é um país que, quando constipa, todo mundo constipa, deviam ficar preocupados com isso. Porque se o Trump acha que os juros deviam ser mais baixos, é porque faz sentido. Porque pela crise que estamos a ter, precisamos mais de injeção de dinheiro. Porque o dinheiro em si, se as pessoas terem medo de trabalharem com o dinheiro, o mundo entra em crise. É preciso que haja as pessoas que trabalhem com o dinheiro, tipo, abrindo novos negócios, investindo, criando projetos. Sabe? Se isso não acontecer, a economia vai abaixo. A economia se alimenta só com o constante crescimento. Até um dia que achamos uma forma de não entrar em crise sem crescer. Porque até lá, precisamos de dinheiro. E tem que se injetar dinheiro. Porque vemos a minha geração, os milênios, e a geração seguinte e a outra, não consegue comprar casa. Porque a inflação é tão gigantesca que não consegue. O salário que as pessoas ganham hoje, é impossível tu comprares uma casa. A única forma é vez da renda. Para isso não acontecer, aí pormos a crescer. Isso fazendo o quê? Criar novas habitações. Então é preciso o quê? Construções novas. Aí é preciso o quê? Investimento, muito dinheiro, muito capital. Aí, para os empresários pegarem então esse dinheiro, porque não vão ter medo, os juros estão lá abaixo, até é bom. E aí os outros investidores também aproveitam para comprar as casas, porque os juros também estão baixos. Então, é aproveitar e comprar as casas e as novas casas vão ser construídas. E aí todo mundo ganha, porque a economia está em movimento, está a crescer. É assim que a economia que foi criada funciona. É constante crescimento, não pode parar. O dia que parar de crescer, a economia acaba. E se para isso não acontecer, o Trump, acho que a estratégia do Trump faz muito sentido.
The reason it's not normal is that the Fed exists in almost this sacred space in our politics and our economics. It was created in 1913 to take interest rate setting out of the hands of politicians. Because
Sim, foi mesmo criado com esse objetivo, de tirar a política dentro do setor da economia. Assim, são independentes, não dependem do Estado. Eles são independentes, eles decidem se baixam as taxas, se sobem as taxas.
if we left management of the economy to politicians, they would print cheap money on the eve of every election and they'd flood, and we'd be stuck in a cycle of endless financial crises. And the Fed, after the Fed was created, we basically removed bank runs and crises from our system. They used to be something that happened every decade or so. That doesn't happen because, and what makes this such an interesting test is that I think a lot of Trump supporters in Silicon Valley, on Wall Street, they all know in their brains and their heart of hearts that maintaining the independence of the Fed is the ballgame. It's the foundation of our strength of this economy.
System. Yeah, no question. Now,
Probably going to see come out of this. Two reactions, at least, I'm looking very closely at. One is, of course, how the markets are responding to this. We've seen them down a little bit today. But
Isso aí dos mercados, isso aí, as pessoas já sabem que isso não tem impacto nada no que é a realidade. Aquilo é um jogo. Um jogo ali, tipo qualquer outro jogo aí que existe das apostas, que é assim que funciona o mercado básico, o mercado das ações, digamos. Malta lá com o dinheiro, vão lá brincando ali, jogar ali, agora vai crescer, vai descer, E aí vão ganhando dinheiro. E ganham muitos milhões nessa brincadeira aí.
But how this continues and if the market really does react in a way that sets off alarm bells.
The man who controls America's money printer, aka Jerome Powell, is being.
O Godzilla, ver aqui o que é que ele tem para dizer sobre essa polêmica aqui entre o Trump e o homem máximo do dólar.
Being threatened. In a video, he claims that he might be criminally indicted for not lowering interest rates fast enough.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June.
Chego ali e diz, pá, nós, se não fizermos isso, vais ter problemas. Vamos começar aí a cair em cima de ti com investigações criminais aí, até demitires aí e saís e colocamos outra pessoa ali para fazer o dólar, o dinheiro circular pelo mundo. Porque esse é o homem máximo. O dono do dólar é esse aqui, não é o Trump, é esse aqui, o homem máximo.
June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have.
Essa é a coisa boa dos Estados Unidos. Eles têm o poder, ok. Os políticos têm o poder, mas há sempre contra-poder para não haver esses abusos, essas faltas de coisa. Essas faltas aqui que estamos a ver agora com o Trump, que por não conseguir o que quer em termos financeiros, mesmo em dinheiro, porque em termos políticos ele consegue muita coisa, mas agora em termos de dinheiro, colocar o dinheiro circular como bem entende, já é outras notícias. Quer dizer, ele pode lixar o país por todo, criando guerras com as outras economias e tudo mais, mas depois, quando toca as suas finanças lá, de aumentar ou subir as taxas de juros sobre o dólar, não consegue fazer nada. Quer dizer, porque normalmente, assim que aumentar o dólar pela circulação, as taxas caem, o dinheiro fica mais barato, é mais fácil conseguir o dinheiro. E o país que tem mais dinheiro é os Estados Unidos. É por isso que os Estados Unidos vivem melhor, porque eles têm mais dinheiro. Normalmente, quando tu tens mais dinheiro, as condições de vida melhoram, porque consegues comprar mais coisas. E é isso que o Trump quer fazer. Esse senhor não quer deixar fazer isso, mas às vezes é preciso deixar, porque o homem já fez tantas outras coisas no outro lado, é preciso ele também fazer esse trabalho que acha que é a estratégia política dele. Então, fica complicado aí.
I've carried out my duties without political fear or favor.
Porque imaginemos se depois o Trump, se esse não lhe deixar imprimir dinheiro, se depois o próprio país entrar em recessão ou ter problemas financeiros, a culpa vai ser de quem? Do presidente ou do homem que controla o dinheiro? É? Então, aí eu acho que deviam deixar o Trump trabalhar.
Focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do. Thank you.
Now, this is an extraordinary statement, mostly because of how much the Fed chair never talks about things like this. Like, for him to release the hostage video of him being like, look, the guy's threatening me, I'm going to try to keep doing my job. The reason that's wild is that it's never happened before. And look, while presidents...
De facto, o homem tá ali, tipo, a falar, mas, tipo, numa condição de quem tá, tipo, refém. Eu estou encurralado aqui com essa malta que eles querem dar cabo de mim.
Wanting the Fed to lower interest rates is nothing new. Almost every president wants that. The idea that a Fed chair gets investigated and has to release the hostage video, that is new. We've never seen that happen ever. In fact, it's important context to know that Jerome Powell was actually appointed by Trump.
Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve.
And even then, they weren't on such good terms. But that's where you could see the independence of the Fed at work. And so while he would be criticized at the time, like the attitude was he wasn't really going to respond. That's been the attitude of the Fed sort of all the time. They try to stay above the noise of politics.
Recently, the President of the United States, who appointed you, has been less than favorable in about some of your decisions. Does that bother you in any way?
No. So we're very, very focused on our job. We don't get distracted by other things. We do not take political factors into consideration either in our discussions or in our decisions at all.
That's right. As long as the Fed has been around, and by the way, there's plenty of reasons to not like the Fed legitimately, but I would argue independence is not one of them. I think that's a actually good quality, and that's what you see kind of reference there. The idea that the Fed should not be reacting to what a president is saying at the time. And the reason for that, there's a good reason, it's because all the presidents would want low interest rates all of the time, even though that's not in the best interest of the economy all of the time. And the reason for that is because low interest rates usually mean a lot of growth. It also can mean heated inflation, which ends up hurting the end customer, right? But nobody wants to take the hit of higher interest rates in the short run because nobody likes it, right? So the Fed, whether you like them or not, has sort of been assigned the adult in the room job of raising interest rates to keep inflation in control. And again, whether you think they've done a good job of that or not is irrelevant. The point is that was their job. They're supposed to be independent. And pretty much all presidents may make some comments about wanting lower rates, but Trump has definitely taken it a little bit farther, mentioning Powell a lot, pressuring him to lower rates, even going so far as to start hinting at the idea of a possible federal investigation. And this all centered around a Federal Reserve renovation, which is running over budget. And there started to be pressure that maybe they would look into Jerome Powell doing something bad if he didn't play ball and lower interest rates. They would try to accuse him of some fraud or some kind of misstatement or something like that. And Trump even actually visited the whole renovation site to kind of make a big PR spectacle of it. And there was this moment where they're arguing over how much the building should have cost, because each one is like jockeying for, oh, you're spending too much money. And the other one's being like, no, I didn't. It's this really weird moment if you don't understand what's happening underneath the surface.
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Now, you're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
So yeah, that was months ago. They were just kind of setting the stage for, hey, we made...
Isso, para ver já que as coisas nem de hoje. As coisas já vinham já dados atrás. Na política é uma coisa. Às vezes, é incrível, meu.
Look into this if you don't play ball. And that's sort of explicitly said later, like a few seconds later in that exact interview. Trump is asked, well, is there anything that would cause you to sort of back off Jerome Powell on all the comments you're making? And he gives away the game.
Are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. But other than that, what can I tell you?
I mean, it couldn't be more obvious. They go to investigate your cost overruns when they don't like what you do. And when asked, is there anything that would tone down your criticisms? Well, yeah, if the guy does what I want. Now, I should be clear, President Trump denies having any knowledge of the Justice Department's investigation, although this is kind of undermined by the fact that Trump has recently threatened to sue Powell for incompetence.
O Trump, o homem é complicado.
They're thinking about bringing a suit against Powell for incompetence.
So, yeah.
Vai não processar por incompetência. E toda aquela drama ali da construção lá do prédio, a dizer, estás a gastar muito. E, pô, quer dizer, ele mesmo quer retirar a ordem da função dele. Só porque o homem não concorda com ele. Mas, pá, na política é assim. Eles criaram mesmo um sistema da América que é para não haver essas confusões todas. Cada órgão tem a sua autonomia, tipo, de trabalhar como quer. E se deixarem, sabe, epá, a América é um país, meu, é um país. Eles sabem manter aquilo, porque aquilo são vários estados. E é preciso ter todos os estados de acordo. Senão o que é que vai acontecer? Cada estado vai virar um país. E, novamente, são assim. Cada estado é um país. Só que eles uniram-se todos e são todos o mesmo país. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, criaram leis ali que é para isso não deixar de ser. O que é incrível, né? Incrível.
Yeah, there's no way really to look at this as anything but pressuring the Fed to do what we want so we can lower rates, even if they're not seeing the economic data for that. Now, I want to be super clear. You can't just, if you're the Fed chair, it's not like Jerome Powell just sets the rates by himself. There are 12 people who vote on the rates, and that's actually how it gets decided. And that matters because regardless whether this investigation leads to an indictment or it's just threats, Jerome Powell is going to be out as the Fed chair very soon. And Trump is going to replace him with somebody who's more favorable towards his thinking about interest rates. But that person also has to get those votes of the 11 other people. And Jerome Powell could stay on as one of those voting members, if I understand correctly, until 2028. So the implication of Jerome Powell goes much longer than just his current chairmanship. I think there's a pressuring to just remove him altogether because he has been an influential opposing voice to the lower interest rates at all cost conversation. Now, I did want to address some false information I've also seen circulating about Jerome Powell. I saw this guy tweeting about this. He says that Jerome Powell is a flagrant partisan working for the deep state. I mean, these people, I don't know if they just don't understand how the Fed works or they know nothing about Jerome Powell even himself. Jerome Powell is a registered Republican. He was originally appointed by George H.W. Bush to the Treasury. And then Obama appointed him, Trump appoints him, Biden appoints him. He has been a staple of the government, serving both Republicans and Democrats forever. But if you just want to go straight down the line of like, you want to play like the he's a hack thing, the guy's literally donated to Republicans his whole life. And then he stopped making donations when he got elected to the Fed chair so he could do the job of being independent and not just serving like one guy's interest or one party's interest, but instead serve everyone. Now, again, you can have disagreements about whether the Fed actually does that job or has messed up that job. But the idea that we are going to be benefited by a Federal Reserve, which is just beholden under duress to what the presidents want at any time, you're just not looking down the curve, I feel, because it's not always going to be a Republican in office. It's going to be a Democrat too. And if the Fed's just a biased guy, it's just always going to be low rates that cause the dollar to further devalue. I mean, I feel like already there's a big public national conversation about the impact of inflation, and you want that problem to be worse? I truly do not understand this one. It's going to be interesting to see how people lay out the case against Powell.
Wouldn't comment specifically on the investigation, but they told CNN the Attorney General wants to, quote, prioritize investigating any abuse of taxpayer dollars. Powell testified before Congress in June, saying the renovation involved various agencies
O Trump meteu o homem, processou o homem. O governo vai processar o homem pela renovação do. Epá, é incrível como é que as políticas. A política, meu dinheiro, precisam estar juntos. E o Trump vai fazer de tudo para conseguir mais dinheiro. Precisa mesmo. Com todas essas polêmicas das tarifas que colocou a economia numa situação complicada, a economia americana vai estar numa situação difícil. Vamos ver o que é que vai sair aqui dessa situação toda.